Readings. Our readings today are Leviticus chapters 1 to 7. It's 2 days of readings in our Bible plan and one video reflection. Now, the book of Leviticus is a book about how our holy God is calling God's people to also be holy. Wayne Turner points out that Leviticus is a book that's really about vocation, and that when we're using Leviticus, he believes that we're to keep in mind the Hebrew overtone of calling or vocation. The first 7 chapters of Leviticus deal with ritual and the offering of sacrifices. Right at the beginning of Leviticus, we continue to see how Moses is a mediator. But the book as a whole doesn't have the same level of narrative that we've been used to in Genesis and Exodus. In chapter 1, verses 3 to 9, what's going on here is we're seeing a community that's being invested and devoted to their God in worship, that we are to give ourselves to God. In chapter 2, verse 13, we read, "You shall not omit from your grain offerings the salt of the covenant with your God. With all your offerings you shall offer salt." Now, Turner writes that salt was used as a symbol of the lasting covenant, since salt kept food from spoiling, right? And also in ancient times, partaking of salt together was a sign of friendship and alliance. Turner also believes that in Hebrew there could be a word play on the word for salt. It's related to the word for king. And it's to God and God alone that we're to be obedient to. So there could be a couple different things going on here when we read chapter 2, verse 13. In chapters 4 and 5, we read about sin and guilt offerings. And then if we're looking at going back now, chapters 1, 2, and 3 are about sacrifices and how they're served as signs of obedience. Chapters 4 and 5 deal with offerings for those who are guilty of sins. And when we go to chapter 7, we read about punishment being cut off from the community. Now, certainly, what we've read so far is much detail, perhaps to us minutia in Leviticus. But Turner wants to remind us that this book is about living the life of holiness. And we are to, what we're reading about here is a call and a desire for a community to be obedient and pure before God. So there's still a lot of fascinating and I believe inspiring stuff within this book of Leviticus as we go through it. Especially when we look at it through a lens of desiring to live the life of holiness and a desire to be obedient and pure before God, and how God is interacting with God's people in the midst of this. Take care and God bless.